Hey, what's up everybody? This is Osterberg501 and today I want to go over all of the spells that we know of for the Sorcerer in Diablo 4. And just like everything else for Diablo 4, all of this information is subject to change and we don't know of all of the different spells for all of the different classes. And some of these spells could also potentially not make it into the final version of the game. But in my opinion, I think pretty much all these spells will probably be in the release version and work pretty much in the same ways that they do off of these tooltips, but all of the numbers and balancing will probably be different. Now, first I want to quickly re-go over the unique class ability for the Sorcerer because this will tie into a lot of the spells for the class. So the Sorcerer has the Enchantment mechanic, which essentially gives you 3 passive slots that you slot in active abilities into. And when you slot in active abilities into your enchantment slots, you now can't use those active abilities as actual spells that you use, and it turns them into a passive effect. For instance, if you slot in the Meteor spell into your enchantment system, it will randomly rain down meteors when you're in combat and target random enemies that you're in combat with. And every single spell in the game will have some different effect that it gives you when slotted into the enchantment system. And this is on top of all of your other customization and all the other different spells that you put on your action bars and actually use as active abilities. Now, all the different spells in Diablo 4 for all of the different classes are split up into what seems to be 6 different categories depending on the different class. And in a lot of the early UI, all of these different categories were alongside a specific keybind. So either left click, right click, 1, 2, 3, or 4. And this UI made it look like you couldn't put different spells of one category on a different keybind. Now that is something that has since been clarified by the developers. You can put any spell you want on any of the different keybinds. They are not put into these rigid categories. It's just that early UI kind of made it look like that. But if you want to put all the different spells from one specific category on all of your action bar buttons, you can do that. You can use any combination of spells you want. To make it a little bit easier, we are going to go over these spells in their different categories with the specific keybind that is next to that category, just to keep it a little bit more organized. But remember, you can use whatever spell you want on whatever keybind in whatever combination you want. So for the Sorcerer, the 6 categories are Minor Destruction, which is on left click, Major Destruction, that's on right click, Defensive, which is on 1, Conjuration, which is on 2, Mastery, which is on 3, and Ultimate, which is on 4. So as of right now, we now have 4 different spells in the Minor Destruction category. First off, we have Lightning, which you launch a bolt of lightning that deals damage and bounces to nearby enemies, doing 30% less to each enemy hit, and this deals lightning damage. Then we have Firebolt, which you hurl a flaming bolt, dealing damage and burning enemies for more damage over 8 seconds. This deals fire damage. Then we have Frostbolt, throw a bolt of frost at an enemy, dealing damage and chilling them. This deals cold damage. And the chill effect is enemies have reduced movement speed. Repeatedly chilling an enemy will freeze them. Then we have Arc Lash, unleash arcing lightning that shocks enemies in front of you for damage and then returns to you, restoring 10 mana. And this deals lightning damage. And these Minor Destruction spells, which are on your left click, seems to be your basic spells that have no cost. Some of them regenerate mana. They're usually not going to be as strong, but be able to be something that is spammable and a filler between your stronger spender spells. And next up, we have 6 Major Destruction spells, which are bound to your right click and seem to be your main damaging spender abilities. So first off, we have Charged Bolts, 18 mana cost, release 6 bolts of lightning that course along the ground in an erratic pattern, dealing a certain amount of damage each. This deals lightning damage. Then we have Fireball, 30 mana cost, hurl a ball of fire that explodes on contact, dealing damage to all nearby enemies, and this deals fire damage. Then we have Ice Shards, 18 mana cost, launch 5 shards that deal damage for each shard, deals 200% more damage to frozen enemies, and this deals cold damage. And the frozen effect is enemies cannot move or attack, and enemies can be frozen by repeatedly chilling them. Then we have Incinerate, which costs 20 mana per second. Channel a beam of fire, burning enemies for damage. Damage increases by 30 per second up to 165, and this deals fire damage. Then we have Chain Lightning, 35 mana cost. Unleash a bolt of lightning, dealing damage and jumping to 4 nearby enemies. This deals lightning damage. Then finally, we have Frozen Orb with a 40 mana cost. Unleash an orb that chills and expels piercing shards for damage and then explodes into frost bolts, and this deals cold damage. And again, the chilled effect slows enemies and repeatedly chilling them will freeze them. So next up, we have 4 different spells in the defensive category, which is set to number 1. First off, we have Flame Shield with a cooldown of 29 seconds. Engulf yourself in flames for 2 seconds, burning nearby enemies for damage per second. While Flame Shield is active, you are immune. This deals fire damage. And while immune, you cannot be damaged and all negative effects are removed and prevented. Then we have Ice Armor, which is a passive only effect. After not taking damage for 5 seconds, ice accumulates on you, absorbing a certain amount of damage. Then we have Blizzard with a mana cost of 40, summons a frigid blizzard that deals damage and chills enemies over 6 seconds. This deals cold damage, and again, chilled slows enemies and repeatedly chilling freezes enemies. Then we have Teleport with a 22-second cooldown, transforms into lightning, becoming immune and surging to the target location. This deals lightning damage, and while immune, you can't be damaged and all negative effects are removed and prevented. And then we have 4 spells for the Conjuration category, which is set to number 2. First, we have Frost Nova with a 24-second cooldown. Unleash a torrent of frost, freezing nearby enemies, and frozen enemies cannot move or attack. Then we have Lightning Spear, cooldown of 20 seconds. Conjure a crackling spear of lightning that seeks out enemies for 6 seconds, dealing damage per hit, and this deals lightning damage. Then we have Ice Blades with a 20 mana cost. Conjure Ice Blades for 12 seconds that rapidly slash enemies for damage and applies chill, deals cold damage, and again, chill slows enemies, repeatedly chilling freezes them. Then we have Hydra with a 20 mana cost. Summon a 3-headed Hydra for 12 seconds. Each head spits fire at a nearby enemy, dealing damage. This deals fire damage. Next up, we have 4 spells in the Mastery category, which is set to number 3. First, we have Firewall with 40 mana cost. Create a wall of flames, dealing damage to enemies over 8 seconds. This deals fire damage. Then we have Nova, which is another passive only effect. After spending 145 mana, you unleash a burst of lightning that deals damage, and this deals lightning damage. Then we have Meteor with a 40 mana cost. Summon a meteor that strikes the target location, dealing damage, and the ground burns for more damage over 3 seconds. This deals fire damage. And then we have a Ball Lightning with a 60 mana cost. Conjure a ball of lightning that slowly moves forward, zapping enemies for damage. This deals lightning damage. And then finally, we have 3 spells in the Ultimate category, which is set to number 4. First, we have Deep Freeze with a 60-second cooldown. Encase yourself in ice, becoming immune for 4 seconds. For the duration, you emanate chilling waves that deal damage. This freezes enemies 58% longer than normal. And again, immune makes you immune to all damage, removes and prevents all negative effects, and chilling slows enemies, and repeatedly chilling enemies freezes them. Then we have Inferno with a 30-second cooldown. Ignite a roaring inferno that pulses in and out of the target area, burning enemies for damage over 8 seconds, and this deals fire damage. Then finally, we have Conduit with a 90-second cooldown. You become lightning incarnate. While in this form, you are immune, and nearby enemies are continually shocked for damage, and you can surge quickly between locations. This deals lightning damage, and again, while immune, you cannot be damaged, and all negative effects are removed or prevented. So that is all of the spells I could find for the Sorcerer, and this isn't all the spells the Sorcerer is going to have. Even with the earliest looks of the spell book for the Sorcerer, there are different spells that aren't filled in yet, so most likely there will be a handful of additional spells once the game is fully released. And again, I went over these spells in their different categories with that keybind that's next to that category, just to make it simpler and more organized to follow. You can put any spell on any keybond you want and use any combination of these spells. If you want to, you could use all 6 of the major destruction spells as all of your 6 spells on your spell bar, and just use that if you wanted to. So any combination of different spells you can use. And also keep in mind, this is the base version of these spells. I didn't go over any of these specific damage numbers because that is stuff that is completely going to change depending on balancing and what gear you currently have on. And you're also going to be able to augment these different spells in a ton of different ways. Different legendaries in the games will completely change how different spells work. You have unique items that will heavily augment different spells. You have your skill tree that has different spell augments and different passive effects that change or augment the spells in different ways. And then you also have spell ranks, so you can rank up your different spells while leveling up. And you have plus spell rank affixes that can also roll on gear that will further upgrade the different spells you want to be using. So there's a ton of customization around all of these different spells, but these are the base versions of all of the spells for the Sorcerer class. And I don't want to give my opinion for all of these different spells for any of the different classes, because again, there's so much customization that will be put on top of these base spells that the base spells are guaranteed to change as you level up throughout the game and get into the end game. And we would just be here forever if I tried to give my opinion on every single spell. So I primarily just want to give you guys the information on all the spells. I'm going to be doing this for every class I can find information on. Specifically, I think the Necromancer doesn't have a lot of information on their spells, but the other 4 classes I will definitely be doing videos on. So subscribe if you want to see more Diablo 4 or other videos. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a comment down below what you guys think about all of the Sorcerer spells, and thanks for watching.